Okay.
We would invite all of you here to stand and join us in a recitation of the Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence when everyone gets in place. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It is now 7 o'clock. Shelby City Council meeting is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seat, please. Call, please.
Mr. Robb. Mr. Roberts? Here. Mr. Gates? Here. Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin? Here.
And I entertain a motion to excuse Councilman Robb.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin to excuse Councilman Robb. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
And the reason for his absence?
The reason for absence, that he will be traveling. Was the explanation you would make. He's traveling. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Nay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
That motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from August 16, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin to dispense with the reading of the journal from August 16, 2021. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
That motion passes. We now come to the time for public comment. We have two guests on the agenda for public comment, but if there's anyone else in the chambers that would like to make public comment to the City Council this time, you may do so by coming to the podium, stating your name, address, and making your comment to City Council. Anyone wishing to make public comment?
Yes, I do.
Please.
My name's Dan Reese. I live at 28 6th Street, and the reason I'm here tonight, a few months ago I was here at this council meeting concerning the trash barrels. Councilman Gates had brought an amendment to this body to see if something could be done about the trash cans sitting out in front of homes. I was informed over the weekend, he said this is not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go any further. He didn't have a reason for it. I'm just curious, and I'd like to find out or have public comment from somebody why this ordinance, or what can be done about this, I guess is what I'm looking for. The problem's still there, the problem with the trash cans. It was worse this weekend. There was 2 of them parked out at the curb the whole weekend. I watched them just pitch their trash cans or their trash bags, their McDonald's bags, their bottles, their cups, everything out in front of this apartment building. My thoughts on this are, and I don't know where the opposition is to changing this, the way it's currently written, what's to say a store in downtown Shelby can't set out a barrel out in front of their store? I don't know of any reason why they couldn't, because the way the ordinance reads, it just says it can't be on the curb for more than 24 hours. So a downtown business can set this right out beside their door, right out front, and we're going to leave that go. It's all right if it's on a dead-end street, I guess, but if it happens on Main Street, I'm sure that somebody would be hollering and screaming about it. I'm asking for this council to help do something about this mess that we have down It's all over town, but I see it every day. I can't walk out on my front porch without seeing this mess out there. This past weekend, not only the trash, there were 9 cars in front of an apartment building that has 3 apartments. They were parked in the yard, they were parked on the street, and some of them were parked with back ends or front ends hanging out on the street. There's no parking on the opposite side. There's signs clearly posted. Routinely, they come up and park on the wrong side of the street, totally disregarding the signs. I'm just asking, can something be done? And the start would be to do something about the trash mess that's going on. Again, not only down there where I can see it, it's all over town. I drive up and down other streets and I see these trash barrels sitting out in front of houses all times during the week. Weekends when there's no trash picked up, there's trash cans and trash bags out there. I don't want to live in a city that's got a mess going on like that. I don't like people to drive into our city and say, what kind of town is this? That there's trash all over, hanging out front of these houses. What kind of people live here? I just can't imagine why this council, the administrators in this town, would want to let this continue to grow. So that's why I'm here tonight. Again, I'm asking for answers, why it's not going any further. And if there's a good reason, can somebody else come up with something better to change this? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I can vouch for what Mr. Reese has said, reporting the situation up there. He called the other day, I went up and looked, and as what he has said here, I saw with my own eyes.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
It was my understanding it was referred to a committee, and I'm not on that committee, so if someone is on the committee, can you speak to where it's at on that committee? Because it was sent there specifically for the ability to rework it and its wording, to then bring back to council, so.
Mr. Ross.
I am a member of the Public Works and General Operations Committee, and we've discussed that, and we're not done discussing it. We've talked about that issue, and we've talked about other issues in that same ordinance that may need to be changed. So like I said, we're not done talking about it. At the last meeting, we didn't really have a quorum. I have a report, but we didn't have enough to discuss things like that. So like I said, we're not done talking about it. We did figure out some other things in there that may need to change also. So like I said, we're not done.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
I could just speak to my position, I can't speak to anybody else in the council. My position was that the original legislation would have been very difficult to enforce. And we needed to have very clear language on what we were trying to get to, and also make sure that we're enforcing current laws that are on the books. If trash cans are out by the curb for that time, or if there are cars that are parked on the wrong side of the street. I mean, these are things that go against current ordinances that can be enforced and should be enforced, and we have enforcement mechanisms for that. So that was my concern, and one of the reasons why I asked that we refer to committee for further look, just to make sure that we have something that is fair, but also enforceable.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin.
As the at-large city councilman, it is a continuing issue, and so hopefully we can do something to strengthen this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, any more public comment? All right, we do have 2 guests on the agenda, and we'll start ladies first. Jessica Griffin, Economic Development Liaison for the City of Shelby. With an update.
Good evening. I know you got a full agenda, so I will try and keep it brief. That is not my strong suit, so I apologize in advance. I'm just going to hit the highlights, so if there's further questions that you have, reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to sit down and talk with you. I've worked with several of you on different issues, so please find me if you have questions. Just a quick update, business retention and expansion calls. There's been 27 separate done this year. Those are where we go to the business, sit down with them, talk about where they're at, what they're doing, often includes a tour of the business, etc. Really excited about what has come out of many of those. We have several projects and potential projects in the works, so I'm working on 4 separate ones now with different manufacturers in the city, some looking at adding equipment, adding software, adding jobs, changing or adding to their footprint. So all good news, they're in various states of the process. We have gotten this year $75,000 in grant funding offered from the state for these projects, so happy about that. The inclusion grant that we've talked about several times, where they kind of focus on smaller projects that don't add 150 jobs, but add smaller jobs and look at adding growth and wealth to a company. We are definitely hitting those hard. So almost every project that we've uncovered, we've been able to facilitate some sort of resource that will help them do that project. On the small business side, retail and service businesses, we've done 4 ribbon cuttings this year. We actually have one coming up Friday, so mark your calendar at 11 a.m. Some of you may know that Shelby Furniture building sold, and it now houses Little Shops of Shelby. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm pretty sure that's right. She kicked around a lot of names before she settled on that one. But we'll be cutting ribbon on that. It's kind of a marketplace in our downtown. And I've also met with a couple of local investors. So when we talked about downtown revitalization and spending public dollars to improve our downtown, the whole goal of that was to encourage private investment as well. And I'm excited to say, we haven't turned a shovel of dirt yet, although there's been a lot of work that's gone into it to date. But we do have private investors who are looking to invest. So there's some really exciting things that will happen probably in the next 12 to 18 months that will change some things downtown on the private side. Not just on the public side that we're aware of. So really excited about that. I can't say a whole lot more, but good things to come. Also in that is the Shaw Building. So CIC, luckily has taken possession of that. We are excited to have it in hands that will hopefully find its highest and best use in the future, prevent the building from falling down, which quite frankly is a danger right now. It could have gone the way of, Napoli's pizza building, and I think thankfully it's in the right hands that won't happen. We'll be able to save it and improve that corner, which is a main corner in our downtown. Facade improvement grants, thank you for funding that program for the 2nd year. We do have 4 projects in the works. I think it's over $25,000 of investment with your $10,000 that you put into the program. So the private dollars are more so than the public again, which is a great place to be. That's what we want to see. So we've got the Vault Wine Bar, the Shelby Accounting Building, Kilgore and Heron, CPAs, and Weber's Bar that will all have facade improvement projects completed in 21. All of those things, the downtown improvement, revitalization, all of the facade improvements, all of that is to work toward growth in our economy as a whole. So many of those things make our city more attractive for businesses that are looking to move in, but also, and maybe more importantly right now, for employees who will work at those businesses. So a big focus of mine this year has been to work on a comprehensive housing study, and I'll pair that with a comprehensive housing strategy. So the study really just gives you the data to back up what we think is happening, which is we have a shortage of housing. We don't have probably the right type or mix of housing in Shelby, but also in Richland County as a whole. So anecdotally we know that, but we don't necessarily, we've never pulled all that data together into one study where we can point to and say, here's what we have and here's what we need, and then looking forward to the future, here's what we're going to need and here's how we're going to get there. So it has been kind of my pet project this year to work on that, because I think employees are how you win in the future. So it's great to attract companies, but if you don't have people to work there, what have you really done? You're just robbing from the growing companies that we have existing here. So there's a group of different partners who have all been kind of living in the housing world for quite some time, and we're pooling all of our resources and trying to do this comprehensively across the county. So it will drill down into each municipality. That specifically was my request, because I want something Shelby specific. Because at the end of the day, once I get the study back and we have all the data and we have Shelby specific information, information. I'm gonna pull developers in and say, here's what we need, here are the resources we can give you. So we have CRA, we have, different tax credits and different programs that we can use to help you move the project forward so we can get the type of housing that we need to keep the people, the kind of people here that we need to work in the jobs that we need to fill. So it's going to be a long process. It's already been, but we've got some powerful groups together. So regional planning is part of this, the city of Mansfield, the city of Shelby, hopefully, Metro Housing Authority, and of course the Chamber of Economic Development. We have worked together to come up with an RFP that will be have all the things in it that we need to move forward. So again, the study with the data, but then a strategy to move it forward. So that will probably, the RFP will probably go out hopefully the end of this month. We're kind of right now working through getting all of the funding nailed down. So there will probably be a request in the 22 budget for Shelby's portion of it. But we think we've got some county partners as well that will carry the bulk of it. So excited to move that forward. You guys funded some education for me this year. Thank you for doing that. I have gone through the Ohio Economic Development Institute and taken the basic class, which was a week long. I did that in 2019. And then this year I've taken a real estate development class, site selection and development, economic development, financing incentives, workforce and talent acquisition, business retention and expansion, and it will culminate with a capstone project which starts the end of this month. And basically that will be a project that benefits the community that I will then go and present. And if it's satisfactory, then I would be a certified economic developer in the state of Ohio, which is a feather in my cap, but also a feather in yours. So I want to end with site development, which we've spent a ton of time on this year, looking at what our best sites are across the county, me specifically looking in Shelby, and then working through that process. So we have looked at the Shoemaker property, which is on 39, as one of our best sites, and worked to get a lot of information on that site. We kind of are working through the zoning process. It's currently zoned residential, that can change soon, and really see what are the assets that are there, making sure we have all utilities in place, that the rail that's there, that exists there, how useful is it, how difficult would it be to build out if we needed to. So we've gone through a lot in that process. I encourage you to check out on Zoom Prospector. You can look it up and look up that property. As we've done that, we also took drone footage of that property and several other properties in Shelby, and then I'm going to end my presentation with a video that we made for Shelby Horizons. So Firestone Tire moved out of that property, and it has since, it's in the process of being sold and remarketed. So this is our, I guess, marketing piece for that property, and we've had a ton of interest. So I'll leave you with that unless there's any questions. Is there any sound? There you go. I do have one other thing. That we just submitted that property for a project that came across through Jobs Ohio Leads. It's called Project Swap. So we'll see what happens. But that's all.
Nice. Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Griffin? Mr. Martin?
Is there anything on the, I guess, the short term that the city council can do to better help you in your efforts for economic development?
I think continue the facade improvement program, and we could make that more robust. And I think there will be an ask for the housing study so that we can specifically target Shelby and make sure we get good information that is usable to attract developers to Shelby.
Do we have a ballpark on what the ask is going to be? I assume for the 2022 budget.
Yeah, I hesitate to say, but it would be probably $5,000 to $10,000. I think that's a ballpark.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. And I have the blessing of having a vantage point of watching Ms. Griffin work day in, day out at the city of Shelby. Does a bunch of guys, and she is always going about, gathering information, Zoom calls, seminars, and everything, and out on the street. So doing a very, very good job here in the city of Shelby, and has grown into this role, I think, in a marvelous way. So we're truly blessed to have Ms. Griffin in Shelby. Alrighty, on the agenda also is Mr. Joe Trolling, Richmond County Mental Health and Recovery Services Board Executive Director. And Mr. Trolling, I guess, why don't you go ahead and give your information, and I will deliver this proclamation when you are done. But Mr. Trolling, of course, is another friend of the Shelby community here. I think most of you would agree with me that there's something about Mr. Trolling in this world of mental health, that he has a very calming presence about him in a world that sometimes could become very chaotic. In Richmond County, he's well known, well respected by all. He knows a lot, but he doesn't come across as a know-it-all. So I fully respect Mr. Trolling from the first day we met, and so thankful for the work you're doing in Richmond County. Sometimes unseen, unsung, but as the report you're going to give will indicate, the board is helping hundreds and hundreds of Richmond County residents, and we're grateful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Sir.
I get that kind of praise from the commissioners, so you have to talk to Tony.
Talk to Joe.
I'm here this month. This is September's Recovery Month, and as is usual for Richmond County, we've decided to veer away from the national center, which their recovery month was recoveries for everyone. We're more interested in doing recovery and vocation. One of the things that we are springboarding the process, starting this month, that's going to carry on for probably at least the next 5 years. We want to work directly with a lot of our employers in getting people into jobs. It's no mystery, or everybody has heard, we have employers that have openings that they can't fill. Well, we also have a large population of, I think we're right around 8,000 people that we served this year in behavioral health. Many of those are very eligible workers. Many of those are people that are in recovery from a mental illness or from an addiction, that have gotten to a point in their treatment where they're ready to get back to work. In the past, that's always been kind of stressful. You know, you had to look for employers that were maybe second chance employers. They were willing to give you another try if you failed your drug screens there or had problems in the past. We want to work with employers to figure out what we can do to make these people acceptable to those positions. And we know it takes give and take on both sides. We have a lot of employers we're already working with. We have a WEO program through Catalyst and through some of the vocational that they have literally lists of 20, 30, 40 employers that have been very good to work with. And they found out you work with our folks and you get a case manager that comes along as well. So there's somebody to call if there is a problem. But we also want to make sure that people are getting jobs where they're needed. So we are hoping to bring these two together. Our goal is to develop a catalog of employers that we are going to call recovery supportive. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're giving everybody a free pass, that there are obligations that they have that we can train them on while they're in the middle of treatment. So when they come, they know exactly what to expect. We also want to educate employers. You know, one of the popular, or not popular, one of the more common things that I've heard is, we're a drug-free workplace. How does that work with then having leniency on people that may be doing medication-assisted treatment? They're going to test positive for opiates. How do we know if that's being therapeutic or they're abusing the substances? These are things that we can work on. We've had employers that have worked through that we want to bring them to the table to be able to provide that. So we're going to really focus on vocation and recovery this month. We do have a couple other very exciting things that are going on. If you haven't heard, we opened our very first behavioral health urgent cares in Richland County. These are basically walk-in clinics that are operating out of Catalyst Life Services in Mansfield, Family Life Counseling in Mansfield, and also Family Life's office here in Shelby at 169 Mansfield Avenue. These clinics, you can walk in Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday in some of the clinics, and in evening hours in some of the clinics, and get a diagnostic assessment without an appointment. Doesn't sound like much, but that has been one of the biggest barriers we have had. Think about it, you're seeing, maybe you go see Judge Stewart, and she says, you know what, I really want you to get an assessment before I make a ruling. And you call up and you're like, well, yeah, I'm working, so I'm available, and it's got to be an appointment probably 2 to 4. Well, the next available appointment in 2 to 4 is in 3 weeks. This isn't quick enough. We need to get to people when they need it. So we've opened up that process. You can walk in Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday at the Mansfield offices, and in the evenings, and get that assessment without an appointment. Also, if you happen to be a client of that agency, and life happens, and yeah, you get your appointment with your therapist next week, but I need to talk to somebody today. They'll also take you in for a half-hour individual counseling session and try to work through that problem, so that we can avoid people escalating to a more crisis level of care. Those are just a couple of programs. You have a calendar of events, and I've included in my calendar, you've got lots of really cool stuff. You've got our one-pager. We always encourage you to have that on hand. We have a couple of programs coming up. We've got a mental health in the church that we're doing on September 11th, where we're going to be working with Crossroads. They wanted a training on just overview of mental health. This is not a clinical training. This is to work with lay people that are interested in the church in helping other people. What are some signs and symptoms to look for? How do you know when it's okay to just talk to somebody, or when you need to make a referral to somebody that's got a little more expertise in the area? We also have a mental health in the business program that we're going to be doing in October, along that same line where we're trying to build those relationships with the businesses. We'll be doing a breakfast on October 8th and October 15th at Kingwood Center, 7:30 to 9. So we come get some breakfast. The first day will be just kind of an overview of what we're hoping to accomplish. Second day will be a little more drilled down into some of those policies and procedures, and we're hoping that this will then springboard into at least a quarterly meeting where we're getting together on topical issues. Maybe employers need to know, why would I want an employee assistance program? Does that really help with insurance costs? Is that really a benefit to employees, and how would we go about that? We've got lots of people with expertise in that area who can bring that along. So a lot of different things that we can do in our community to really make it a great place to live and work. All right, I'm going to stop. Since Jessica said she's going to be short, I'll
You were short again. Oh, that is wonderful. This urgent care concept is, Richland County has been on the cutting edge of so many things that other counties have said, hey, I like that, that works, and we can be very pleased and proud of the fact that model oftentimes started right here in Richland County, and so thank you for that, and good stuff. Are there any comments or questions from council for our guest, Mr. Trollian? If not, I'm going to read this proclamation. Gladly. Richland County September is Recovery Month 2021. For over 30 years, National Recovery Month has worked to improve the lives of those affected by mental illness and addiction disorders by raising awareness of these diseases and educating communities about prevention, treatment, and recovery resources that are available. In addition, this year we would like to emphasize employment as an essential part of the recovery process. Whereas Richland County served 8,000 residents for treatment of addiction or mental illness between July of 2020 and June of 2021 in a publicly funded system. Services were provided by 11 treatment agencies, including Catalyst Life Services,
Family Life Counseling in Mansfield, Umatah. Whereas to address the need for immediate access to treatment, Catalyst Life Services and Family Life Counseling have opened the county's first behavioral health urgent cares. These urgent cares allow access to diagnostic assessments and brief solution-focused counseling Monday through Saturday without the need for an appointment. Whereas research has shown that gainful employment introduced at the right time with a supportive employer in an individual's road to recovery can increase the drive to stay in recovery and significantly decrease the rate of relapse. Whereas we know with the impact from COVID-19, we have many employers who need qualified workers, and we have individuals in recovery that have skills to offer. This creates an opportunity to enhance both systems as we all resume our lives post-pandemic. Therefore, I, Stephen L. Shagg, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Recovery Month in Shelby, Ohio. As the Mayor of Shelby, I call upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools in Shelby to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of the behavioral health treatment and recovery and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental illnesses and addictions. In witness whereof, I am here to set my hand and cause the seal of Shelby, Ohio to be affixed this 7th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2021. Mr. Troy, I will give you this and place on all the rest of those folks that are supporting you. Thanks again for coming.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for the support of the council.
You're welcome. Yes, you
Have family times.
There you go.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. All righty. Any other public comment? We're seeing none. We'll move forward then to reports from standing and special committees. Community and Economic Development Committee, Councilman McLaughlin.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report today.
I think we all knew that Ms. Scriven was coming here this evening and pretty well giving a comprehensive report. Thank you. Public Works and General Operations Committee, Councilman Rob. And so, Mr. Roberts, you're finished getting here.
I do have it. Public Works General Operations Committee met on August 24th. Mr. Gash reported that the replacement of City Hall roof had begun, and except for a small issue with some decking, the project was going well. Mr. Gribbon joined us, and we had a discussion about the food truck and trailer legislation that will be coming shortly. As I said, I think in the last report from the General Operations Committee, that we're using an ordinance that deals with dumpsters in public spaces, I think, because we don't have anything that deals with food trucks right now. So that legislation, I've seen maybe some, we'll call it a draft copy of that, and it's being worked out, and we'll have something hopefully by the next council meeting. Mr. Gass also said we had one new permit given for a new construction of a house. That means 5 new houses in town this year, which that's a really good thing. We kind of goes along with what Ms. Britt said. We're trying to bring people in. So if we're having houses built, whether it's new people coming in or people upgrading and building their own house, that it's always a good thing. And lastly, with that, the taxi driver is there. He loves his job. He's doing a good job. That's that report.
Mr. Roberts, are there any comments or questions for Mr. Roberts in regard to his report? We'll move forward to the Safety Committee, Councilman Roberts.
All righty. Safety Committee met on September 1st. Fire News Chief Thompson let us know that we still had one opening for a firefighter. That's ongoing. We're looking for a replacement. Fire hydrant painting continues in Ward 3, and that'll just keep continuing until they're all done. It's a little, being that we're short, it's taking a little bit longer than it typically does, but they'll get done. Chief Thompson wants to start the process of replacing the old ambulance squad 38 next year. 2006, which kind of surprised me, and it's just lately been costing more money than it's worth. So at some point, that's our backup right now. At some point, if we ever do decide to take over, which is a plan, take over for EMS, we're going to need 2 ambulances anyway. So right now, that was not even it's not even a a reliable backup. So we need something for this near term and something for the long term also. Health Department, they're working on 8 nuisances. There's some issues with, the pools are popping up. Seems that we have the newer soft-sided pools with the blow-up rings and whatever. And even if you pull a ladder out of those, you can lean over that edge and just go right on in. So, you know, maybe we're going to see some legislation that deals with that down the road because they're, you know, they are a danger. COVID side.
I'll do the report.
Yeah, I'll let the mayor give a report on the numbers and stuff, but we were informed that we need to, because this new variant is out and it's strong, that we should, anybody we come in contact with, we should just assume has it, because there's a lot of these home tests right now, and they're not being reported. So, you know, we have the numbers that are being reported, but we don't have all the numbers. So, and maybe some people are, you know, they take the test at home, they're positive, they're not going to report because they want to go on with their life. So, you know, somebody could be standing right beside the store, you know, may be positive. So you just got to be cautious with that kind of stuff. Police news, staffing is still an issue. Retirements, resignations, illness, you know, it's all that brings all the numbers down of officers and dispatchers. The process of new hires, you know, that's ongoing, and again, that will get taken care of at some point. All the new hand sanitizer stations have been put up and installed at the police station, so that's a good thing. Chief did say that we're going to start taking people in to the jail again, and we have 3 housing units, so we're going to have 3 people at a time. We're not going to put more than 1 person in a housing unit because of COVID, so, you know, but we can start bringing some people in that, you know, that can serve their sentence that maybe have been sentenced, you know, before COVID started. So that's a good thing. Since last safety report, action has been taken on the plan. I talked about the need to switch over to the March radio system. And thank you, Mr. Gates. That, you know, there was a meeting took place, and there has been a plan realized to make that happen sooner rather than later. Part of Ordinance 23 tonight will you know, put some money into that, and all of Ordinance 24 is for you know, the loose money around so that we can take care of that radio situation. That is everything I have for that.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Roberts in regard to his report? Hearing none. Councilman McLaughlin, since we did have a committee of the whole meeting, maybe just give just a real brief recap, since I don't want to wait until the next meeting since it took place previous to this one. Would you be able to just put that in like a little bit of a nutshell report for the record, for this council meeting record? Yes.
Yes, so tonight it's from 6 to 6:50. The committee of the whole met with the Shelby Historic Preservation Commission to discuss the 1873 firehouse, the future use of the firehouse. So some good discussions, and so I believe the commission will be talking further with the CIC to see if there might be any you know, further discussion to come with something down the road in case, you know, after Superior may move on, or 2.5 years from now, there at least might be something to, some direction to go at that point.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from Mr. McLaughlin in regard to that report? Okay, now we'll move forward then to reports from city officials. I know we have a full agenda. I will try to keep everything real quick this evening, short I should say. Just some highlights. A conditional offer of employment letter has been signed by a recent police officer candidate, which is good news. And so this candidate will be moving forward through that process. I believe the physical has already been scheduled, so we hope things will continue to move in a positive direction and bring another police officer on board here in the near future. The Ditch petition, there was an article in the Daily Globe regarding the ditch petition moving in through its stages. And so in that regard, Commissioner Mears called me and said that the $20,000 plus bond that we put up has been released by the county commissioners, and we should see that check in the coming weeks. Everything goes through the processes there, but so that is part of that whole process of the public hearing and an appeal period and so forth, so they feel comfortable in releasing the bond that we put up as a city. So that is good news. In regard to the COVID-19 reports, our reports are now coming out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday reports. So you'll get a report tomorrow in my absence from Miss Tiffany Ellenberger. But as of today, the numbers are total documented cases are 1,072, recovered cases 973, currently 61 active cases are documented. One of those cases is hospitalized, and the death total is still 38. The good news in all of that is that we have seen no new COVID-19 deaths since the variant appeared in our county. So that's where the numbers are. And we had a Board of Health meeting, and we weren't at full staff at that meeting, but we're looking over the policies, the particular policy of the school and so forth, and see where we want it. And so I don't see any major changes. Mr. Tarvin had indicated that total absences for the high school and the middle school were actually down somewhat, which is a good thing, but we know that those numbers will go up and down all the time. We're keep an eye on that and working closely with our school systems here in the city, Pioneer and our school systems and St. Mary's. Okay, any questions or comments for me? All right, if not, we'll move forward to Mr. Crum, Director of Finance.
Thank you, sir. Pretty much routine business around my office. I did nail you guys with a lot of ordinances tonight with some housekeeping issues, and we can talk about those as we go through them. I did drop off the property tax assessments for the West Main Street Sewer project this afternoon. So that is out of our hands now. They will be assessed beginning this year, which will help because we can pay the bills that way. Those are really the two major things. I won't take your guys' time. If you have any questions for me.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Crum? Thank you, Mr. Crum. Look forward to Mr. Eister, Law Director.
The report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Eister. Mr. Geis, Project Coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, I'll try to give some updates on, there's a lot going on. Our roof has been continually worked on at City Hall. I believe that should be done next week and maybe the end of the week. They're down to the one last section of replacing, and then they'll just have to, put all the capping and finish work and so forth on. Our paving project, I just found out this afternoon, they would like to start that this Thursday. So on that whole area, our arch opens up bids on Friday, 10 o'clock. The lead service lines, there was a good number of questions from contractors looking to bid that. So we did put an addendum out to delay that opening until next Thursday so we can have time to answer those questions. We had a meeting with the contractor for the downtown streetscape project and our construction engineering firm, and right away the big problem we're having right now is materials, and that's pretty common with all building projects. So more than likely they'll be requesting a extension to complete that project, which kind of compounds everything else with bicycle days and so forth. So we've already notified the bicycle days committee of this delay. So we're going to receive a schedule of when they think they can get done based on the availability of materials, and then we can get back with that committee and then roll with that and see what changes or whatever needs to be made, so. That wasn't a very good first meeting, but very much expected, so. And we continue to meet on the plaza area, so that should be coming to council very soon to get that out for bids. So a lot of those same materials will be in on that, so we have already started to try to adjust the schedule for that, so that's all I have.
Mr. Geis, are there any comments or questions for Mr. Geis in regard to his report? Moving forward then to new business. Is there any new business to be brought before council this evening? Mr. Crum.
This may be a question, sorry, I'm still kind of a new guy. I did get a letter here about the planning commission. Does that go to new business, or is that, I know that we've got one resolution accepting an annexation, or the miscellaneous business at the end?
With the annexation. We have two separate items in that letter. One, of course, is the rezone, and then the second one is the annexation. I think this letter would be supportive of that legislation for the annexation. And then the rezoning will move forward to this next steps as well. But this is the letter that's needed by council to move forward with that. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, regarding the rezone, I would happily sponsor that piece of legislation.
Thank you. All right. Any other new business? If not, move forward to unfinished business, and I think we pretty well talked this topic through, but for the record, the future use of Main Street Fire Station. Again, we had that meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission, and I hear Councilman Martin loud and clear to try to get some direction here, the best we can for its present best use and future use. So we'll try to categorize some thoughts under those two headings. Any further discussion on that particular item? McBride Park Baseball Field, Councilman Rob is, I think, having conversations, and I think we'll have a report probably next meeting in that regard. Okay. Any other unfinished business? Well, let's get the legislation then.
Ordinance number 22, 2021, amending ordinance number 8, 2021, annual appropriations and declaring an emergency.
I move the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts that the rule requiring that ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
The motion, the suspension passes.
Move the ordinance be taken and passed.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts, the passage of ordinance number 22, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Well, I want to thank the finance director for looking at the different line items and coming up with these recommendations to council. We have a problem, however, that what is in the ordinance and what is on his certificate do not match.
Somebody needs to get a calculator out.
Well, they add up. The parts equal the whole, but the parts aren't right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I see that too. Mr. Crum.
If it pleases the council, would you mind switching the 50,000 under engineering to 100,000 and changing the construction line item to 300,000 from 350,000? My apologies, I had a late discussion with Mr. Ensman, and we decided to move some more funds in there, but I neglected to notify Mr. Eister.
Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I ask unanimous consent to amend section 1 to change the engineering line item from $50,000 to $100,000, and the construction line item from $350,000 to $300,000.
Okay, Mr. Gates is asked by unanimous consent to make these amendments in section 1 to change engineering from $50,000 to $100,000 and construction from $350,000 to $300,000. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, it will be so amended. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
That motion, ordinance number 22, 2021 passes.
Ordinance number 23, 2021, amending ordinance number 8, 2021, annual appropriation and declaring an emergency.
With the rule requiring that ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, a second by Mr. Roberts, that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts. Yay. Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
That motion to suspend passes.
Move the ordinance be taken on pass.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of ordinance number 23, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, on the 18th of last month, the police chief, the finance director, and I met and looked at what was needed to be done to finance the Marks radios. And it's we came up with three things that we needed to do. 2 of them are in this ordinance, and 1 is in the next ordinance, ordinance 24. And so we were looking at monies from the police court construction fund, monies from the capital improvements, existing monies that have been appropriated to transfer within capital improvements, and then making a supplemental appropriations from capital improvements, coming up with $106,000, which is what we needed. I received, as others did as well, an email this morning from the chief giving more detail. And you know, as we well know, in life in general, and City Hall in particular, things are never as simple as what we would like them to be. So, in a nutshell, the project is going to be more than this $106,000. And even when we met, we were looking at my notes that $106,000 was needed for the radio themselves, and then the possibility of repeaters, another $30,000. But the chief's email went on in great detail, and you know, if he could come forward and kind of give us, you know, his Reader's Digest version of what we need to do, that would be helpful, I think, to all of us. So I think my suggestion is we would go ahead and take care of these 2 pieces of legislation. There's other things in them as well, but knowing that there's going to be more expense to this than what we had thought. So that's kind of my Reader's Digest version of where we're at right now.
Mr. Gates is absolutely accurate. I do want to thank Mr. Gates in particular for kind of setting up a meeting, going through those numbers with us. That was really the catalyst for us getting started with this project. However, I had multiple conversations with one of the vendors today, just trying to get a handle on those costs. It looks as though, right now, that we can substantially decrease by about $30,000 that cost by changing one thing. And that is just simply adding mobile radios instead of replacing the mobile radios with dual band radios, and I think we can make that work. That will cut about $30,000 out of that, so I think we're probably on track with the $106,000. So I think we're probably okay right now, barring any last minute changes. And then Mr. Geis has graciously volunteered to help me with the bid process on those two projects. So one would be the dispatch project, the other would be the mobile and portable radio project. So I think this is a good start. I agree with you. And I think after my multiple conversations with a vendor today, that we can keep it within that number.
Mr. Gates?
Some of the radios are on the state purchasing program bid, so they're already done. The state has done the bidding for us, so, but I think it's the, what needs to be done with the dispatch, you know, very particular to our dispatch area, you know, that's something we will have to bid. But again, another good benefit of the state cooperative purchasing, that they will make this, an easier process for us.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Well, excuse me, Rick.
Yes.
Just on the ordinance 23, that first line item there, the $46,000 is part of the radios. The third one down, equipment from the police court building, that's the $24,000. And I know we do one ordinance at a time, but then the additional $36,000 is in the next ordinance. It's the last there, the transfer from police cruisers to equipment. So we add those three up and we get the $106,000 to do that. There's other items in there as well. The Whitney Avenue Bridge, we've got a contract coming up. You know, we need to get the funding in place to take care of that resolution. Engineering, because we're doing so many projects, you know, we just keep adding to engineering line items, which is a good thing. The 502 WCI, the 536 for construction, that has to do with the water lines. And again, we've got a grant application for the Walnut Street area and West Park Drive. That's backs that up. And with the diesel fuel and for the electric fund, with the peak alerts and things that we have, my guess is that the city has fired up all the diesels that we can. You know, here's a good example of sometimes you need to spend money to save money. If we didn't have these diesels, you know, for peaking, and we go over, you know, what we have pre-ordered on any given day for any given hour, and you know we get socked with huge expenses for that. You know, the power you go out and buy on the spot market, you know, you don't want to know this. You talk about sticker shock, and so again, we've got, you know, the diesels for peaking at the utility plant, or the water and sewer and things like that. So it's a good thing to have, and you know, we would prefer not to do it, but when we've had the long-term heat wave that we had this last month, you know, it's we do have some local control, and the diesel units are part of that. So that's what that additional $20,000 is for.
Thank you. And speaking of peaking, as far as I know, from what Mr. Gunner was saying, we were batting 1,000.
That's correct.
So we have managed to hit all of our peaks, but we want to. So, and just like you said, that's good news. It's money well spent.
Very good news.
Yeah. Of course, between the diesels and the solar field, all working together. Any further discussion on this piece of legislation? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Ordinance number 23, 2021 passes.
Ordinance number 24, 2021, transferring appropriations for the year 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Move the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yeah.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Motion to suspend passes.
Move the ordinance be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin that ordinance number 24, 2021 be taken up for passage. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Ordinance number 24, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 54, 2021, accepting the annexation of certain parcels of land known as the Schuler Moore annexation in Jackson Township, Richland County, to the city of Shelby.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of resolution number 54, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
This is the last step of this annexation process, so if council were to vote for this tonight and the mayor signs it, this property will be inside the city in 30 days.
Yes, Mr. Gates.
Annexations are scarcer than hen's teeth anymore. I can remember a time when they were frequent, but the legislature, I want to be gentle in this, siding with townships over municipalities has made annexation an extremely difficult procedure these days. So that's why we don't see many annexations. Another thing is that he reminds us he's the new guy here on the block, but the clerk of council has a duty under the revised code, assuming this passes, to notify the board of elections of this. They will want a certified copy of the resolution, a copy of the map, and I believe that the clerk may also be required to inform the Secretary of State of this annexation as well.
Thank you for that.
Thank
Mr. Gates.
Section 3 of this does state that he will need to submit this to the county commissioners, the county auditor, the county recorder, the secretary of state, and other things required.
There we are, yes.
And if I may, previously we made mention that the planning commission voted unanimously to recommend the acceptance of the plats of survey and so forth. It's in the letter that's in your packets. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, is that a requirement that they do that?
Mr. Gates.
Well, the plat that was presented had that on there. The reason why it is required because in the annexation law, we have to take over both sides of the road. The other side of the road is not in the city, but we have to maintain both sides. So we are taking that plat of that roadway in on the city, so it is a requirement.
Any further discussion? We're voting on the passage of resolution number 54, 2021. Roll call.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Resolution number 54, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 55, 2021, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to enter into a contract change order with BK Layer LLC for the East Main Street Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $11,464 and $00100 as an increase and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution taken passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of resolution number 55, 2021. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
The biggest problem we had on this was a storm line that was not on any of our maps on High School Avenue. So when we were running the new line, we ran in the old storm line, so a lot of we supplied the crews, they supplied labor to put it in. They were made a bigger area of asphalt that needed to be fixed and so forth. And then up towards Mohegan Street, the water line was sitting right next to the old manhole. So we had to move the manhole and so forth. it was just a big pain, but, so that's the crux of the change order.
Mr. Gates.
Mayor, a number of years ago, I attended an archaeology workshop for teachers down at Hopewell Culture in Cincinnati, or outside of Chillicothe, excuse me. And one thing we used was a piece of ground-penetrating radar. I wonder, in cases like this, if some sort of apparatus like that wouldn't be worth our while to have.
Yeah, I wonder as well. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Resolution number 55, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 56, 2021, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service of the City of Shelby to apply for the Ohio Department of Development Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Grant and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of resolution number 56, 2021. Discussion? Mr. Gates. Oh, guys.
These are the two projects that our administration has presented to talk about with council with these worst areas echoed by our fire chief and so forth. This is the grant program that was rolled out to us, and if you see in the applications, when we did submit those to the county engineer, we were number 3 and number 5 in the county. The Walnut was number 3, if I'm not mistaken, so. Good, and that will give us more credit when it gets submitted to the state.
Mr. Gates.
3 and 5 out of how many?
The county engineer put a deadline for submission, and it was very quick because he had to have a deadline that was submitted to him. So there were 7 originally, and 3 came in after. But he, I think he's going to rank them afterwards, but they were not given priority since they did not meet the date.
Definitely, yeah, automatically like 8, 9, 10. That's just where you came in.
And some of the criteria for that the county engineer used was, one was findings and orders. And I can't remember what project it was, but that really bumped that one up to number 1. So.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Resolution number 56, 2021 passes.
Resolution number 57, 2021, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement with BCC Ohio, Inc. to repair the West Whitney Avenue Bridge and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of resolution 57, 2021. Discussion. I think we all know the area, right? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Resolution number 57, 2021 passes. The much anticipated miscellaneous business. Mr. Martin.
Our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to Americans stuck in Afghanistan. A lot of private parties trying to get them out, and pray for those continued efforts.
Any further miscellaneous? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I'm sure that all my colleagues will join with me as we extend our best wishes to you tomorrow. And it's my prayer that the great physician be with you and with the medical people taking care of you. And that the acting mayor have a quiet week. And I'd like to take an opportunity to wish everyone a happy Rosh Hashanah. We are halfway through the Jewish New Year, which began at sundown last evening and will end at sundown tomorrow evening. And I'd like to wish everyone Shana Tova. Have a sweet year.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you, Mr. Gates.
And with that, Mayor, I move council adjourned.
Second.
We We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts. Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
That motion passes. We adjourn at 8:09.